President Trump on Thursday attacked the military record of Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut after Blumenthal relayed a message from Mr. Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch. That message? That Mr. Trump's recent attacks on the federal judiciary were disheartening and demoralizing. The president insists Gorsuch's comments were misrepresented. Margaret Brennan has the latest from Washington.
Judge Gorsuch is an exceptionally qualified nominee. Probably there's rarely been anybody that's been more qualified.
As President Trump's Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch tried to build support on Capitol Hill, the president did his own outreach to a bipartisan group of senators at the White House. The meeting came a day after Gorsuch privately lamented Mr. Trump's attacks on the judiciary, criticism that the president said was made up.
You misrepresented his comments totally.
I asked you what your thoughts were, sir.
His comments were misrepresented.
But former Senator Kelly Ayotte, who's guiding Gorsuch around the Capitol, had just hours earlier confirmed that Gorsuch had indeed said he found any criticism of a judge's integrity and independence disheartening and demoralizing. Republican Senator Ben Sasse also said Gorsuch was upset.
He got a little bit emotional, and he said that any attack or any criticism of his brothers and sisters of the robe is an attack or a criticism on everybody wearing the robe.
Courts seem to be so political.
Mr. Trump has lashed out at federal judges who have questioned his immigration order. White House spokesman Sean Spicer.
But in other words, the president will continue to speak like this.
Of course he will. The president's going to speak his mind. It goes back to Thomas Jefferson, that presidents have commented on judicial nominees.
Earlier today, the president hit back at Republican Senator John McCain for his criticism of a U.S. raid against al-Qaeda in Yemen, which killed Navy SEAL Ryan Owens and several civilians. McCain said the operation was not a success. On Twitter, Trump wrote McCain should not be talking about the success or failure of a mission. He's been losing so long he doesn't know how to win anymore.
That was Margaret Brennan reporting. Mr. Trump's comments about Senator McCain prompted this tweet from his daughter, Fox News host Meghan McCain. Trump has never served. My father can't bend one of his knees or lift one of his arms above his head. I am done with this today. Done. Let's go now to our political panel in Washington. Margie Omero is a Democratic pollster and Executive Vice President of Public Affairs at PSB Research, and Alex Conant is a Republican strategist and partner at Firehouse Strategies. All right, welcome to you both. A lot to get to. Alex, let's begin with the decision on this immigration ban. We've heard from the president in an all-caps tweet, nonetheless. How should we understand the White House response?
Well, I think that they're, like many of us, still reading through the decision and trying to weigh the next options ahead of them. Do they appeal to the Supreme Court, where it seems unlikely that they will prevail, if only because it's right now divided 4-4, so there's not a majority to rule in his favor? Or do they go back to the lower court and argue the case on its merits, which they continue to believe that they will win? So that's the decision that they're making right now. I think the tweet and his comments to the pool that you just aired were intentionally vague, as the Justice Department, including the newly sworn-in Attorney General, make decisions on how best to proceed.
Well, Margie, this question could go all the way to the Supreme Court. Should Senate Democrats, you think, make the confirmation hearings for Judge Neil Gorsuch about this one issue?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot to discuss, and certainly the fact that you see several senators note that Gorsuch finds when Trump attacks the court to be problematic. I think that's part of this issue too. I mean, really thinking about how is Gorsuch independent from the president? That's really the crux of what we all really want to know and find out, and this is certainly part of it.
Yeah, and Alex, let me ask you about that. What did you make of Judge Gorsuch telling a Senate Democrat that he found the president's comments on the judiciary disheartening?
Well, I thought it was really good politics on the judge's part. He's trying to get 60 votes. That means he needs 8 Democratic votes to support him. Showing some separation from Trump, showing some independence from the administration is really good politics as he tries to pursue those 60 votes. To me, this entire episode reminds me of when I worked in the Bush White House, and the president and the administration in 2005, 2006 tried to remove some U.S. attorneys from their posts. They were in their right to do so, but anytime the executive, anytime the president tries to meddle with the judicial branch, or is seen to be meddling with the judiciary branch and putting political pressure on it, that is very, very tenuous ground, as President Bush found out, and I think President Trump is finding out now.
So, Margie, then, does seeing Judge Gorsuch break with President Trump make him more appealing to Democrats?
Well, it's maybe necessary, and it's not going to be sufficient. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot here at play. I mean, first, you have Democrats still angry about the gap that was left, the vacancy that was left. That Merrick Garland, completely qualified candidate, wasn't even, his nomination wasn't even held up to a vote. So there's that. You have the fact that people worry about the independence. People worry about the direction of the court going in a way too far to the right, farther to the right than where the American people are on a lot of issues. So there are a lot of things that I think are going to be part of this debate. The merits of this particular issue about the travel ban is one of them.
Margie, let me ask you, 56% of Democrats want their congressman to stand up to President Trump, even if it means blocking all legislation and nominees. That's according to a Political Morning Consult poll this week. What incentives do Democratic lawmakers have to work with Republicans?
Well, I think that, Democrats have the incentive that we like government. We want government to work and get things done. So that's our usual incentive. Now, there is no other incentive right now, because you see the Republican Party, you see this administration for sure is not extending a single olive branch to Democratic voters, to Democratic members that are elected, to Democratic leaders, nothing. If he was trying to do that, he'd be doing something completely different. He'd be talking about transportation, infrastructure, and meeting with CEOs, and that would be it. I mean, he wouldn't be doing, he'd put his phone in the shredder. He wouldn't be doing any of this other stuff that he's doing. He's not. He's taking on our, not just Democratic Party institutions, our democratic institutions as a country every day. So there's no real incentive for Democratic leaders to come to the table, because there is no table. He is not setting a table. He is not offering a seat at the table or any kind of discussion about any unifying agenda or policy in any way.
So, Margie, would it hurt Democrats then if they did go along and found some kind of measure that they did want to cooperate with the Trump White House on? Would that hurt them, you think?
Well, with a lot of Democratic voters, I think the polls right now show a lot of enthusiasm with Democratic voters. They want to get more engaged politically. They want, the poll that you mentioned is important, and you see more activity, more energy on the left than people have seen in a long time. So I think there may be, I don't want to say a penalty, but their enthusiasm is behind standing up to Trump. And again, that's because Trump is that is the way that is forward. There is no other option. Trump is not offering some kind of negotiation. He's not offering something that would be helpful to Democratic voters or to people in their districts, let alone political calculation. There's nothing that Trump is offering for voters in his district to really help them that would make Democratic electeds really want to work together with him.
Alex, let me turn to you. Congress goes on recess next week. How do Republican lawmakers explain to constituents why it's taking so long to get some of these things done?
Well, because governing is hard. Governing takes time. President Trump has been in the White House for all of about 20 days already. Normally we at least give a new president 100 days before we start judging whether or not he's off to a strong start.
But what happened to repeal and replace, Alex?
Well, and I know Congress and the administration is working really hard on that, but for goodness sake, we don't even have an HHS secretary confirmed yet. I mean, some of this will just take time. But to the point that Marjorie was just making, I don't think it's fair to say that Trump has not been reaching out to Democrats. I mean, just this week, he had Democrats in the West Wing meeting with them, talking about his agenda. He has not put forward a lot of policy, in part because he is taking a long time getting his personnel set. A lot of the cabinet hasn't been set yet. And my sources in the West Wing say that it continues to be a work in progress in terms of setting up basic processes for establishing new policy proposals. That's why the rollout of the executive order regarding immigration was so botched a few weeks ago, but it is coming together. Again, Trump is a new president. He's never governed before. He's never held elected office before. The team surrounding him is a lot of people from outside of government. So I think as a whole, America should just take a deep breath, and give him a little bit of time to set up his administration, set up the new government, and start offering some new policies, and hopefully he can win some Democratic support for them as well.
Margie, let me go back to you. Some commentators have compared some of the protests that we've seen against President Trump to Tea Party demonstrations in 2009. Do you think that's a productive playbook for Democrats?
Well, I think that, you know, the Tea Party was successful in getting some issues into the public dialogue. It was successful in generating some enthusiasm on the right, and I think you're seeing, you know, similar enthusiasm on the left. You're seeing really massive numbers. I think the Tea Party was a little bit different in that it was seen as adjacent to the Republican Party. Was it completely a subset of? Was there overlap? But you know, not completely outside the Republican Party, not completely inside the Republican Party. I think it's a little bit different than what you're seeing with the protests. That those are folks, you know, by and large on the left who identify as Democrats. By and large, it's not trying to be kind of a different party entity. But I think in terms of using a lot of the tactics, which is going and meeting members of Congress in their districts, you've seen a lot of success. There are a lot of members who are nervous about meeting with voters. They feel they're being held accountable for some of their positions, maybe even changing their votes or deciding that they're going to change their priorities as a result of some of the pressure that they've received back at home. And in that respect, it is very successful.
All right, Margie Omero in Washington. Alex Conant, thank you as well. We will see you a little later in the show, Alex.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Coming up.